Volkswagen Polo Sedans sold well and are still in steady demand. The good reliability of this car is confirmed by its popularity in taxis. But the Polo Sedan also has weaknesses, and childhood illnesses, and characteristic malfunctions. However, like everyone else, if the mileage on the odometer has approached the mark of 150,000 kilometers, then be especially careful. Polo Sedan has been produced in Russia since 2010. The range of engines included only gasoline units, inline fours of 1.4 liters with 125 horsepower and engines with a volume of 1.6 liters of different capacities, 85, 90, 105 and 110 horsepower. Gearboxes, 5 or 6-speed mechanics, A6 torque converter, and DSG-7 dry robot. In 2015, the car underwent a restyling, during which there were changes in the optics, headlights and lights, as well as in some body panels, a radiator grille, hood and bumpers. The interior trim has also been updated and previously inaccessible options appeared, for example, electric folding mirrors and front parking sensors. The engineers also worked on soundproofing, but the main thing was a new naturally aspirated engine 1.6 and a turbocharged 1.4, since 2016. Body. Some cars had a problem with peeling paint over the windshield. But most of all, the wiper trapezoid turned sour. Interestingly, this feature was also found on the Polo hatchback, both the current and the previous generation 9N. Probably the engineers just blew this malfunction. On long runs, peeling paint and varnish were noticed in the area where the front fenders meet the doors and sills. Many owners complained about the frequent replacement of light bulbs in the headlights. Interestingly, no one has found the real reason. But after restyling, this problem is gone. Probably just the supplier of lamps for the conveyor was initially chosen not the best. It is important to understand that the Russian origin also affected the quality of individual elements, which were also produced there. For example, the plastic front panel, TV, cracks even with minor impacts. It is enough just to poke a little into a high curb or snowdrift. In this case, a crack may appear in the place of the radiator supports, which could simply fall out under the weight. And the radiators themselves turned out to be too tender. The smallest pebbles easily jammed the honeycombs, so installing a protective grid is a must-have. Important. If you notice that Freon is leaving quickly, then it may not just be a leak. The fact is that as a result of a dirty or poorly functioning radiator, a significant increase in pressure occurs in the circuit, and Freon just squeezes out. All due to poor airflow of the heat exchanger. Another real problem was the unfortunate location of the trunk lock cylinder. Well, you can't imagine worse. As a result, dirt was clogged there, and for almost a year the castle was no longer opened. In addition, again, the supplier of the locks was probably also some kind of local, otherwise how to explain that the larva broke incredibly quickly from frequent use? The atmospheric engine 1.6 of the CFNA series, 85 and 105 horsepower, was installed on pre-styling cars. By the way, the difference in power here is achieved due to different firmware versions of the control block. The main feature of the CFNA series motor is the knock of pistons when warming up to a cold one. Such a problem manifested itself already at a run of under 50,000 km. The plant began to be corrected only from April 2013. Then they began to install upgraded pistons, but this did not help. The knock was present, the forums were full of indignation and advice, but the problem did not go away even for those who had the old piston replaced under warranty. Interestingly, this feature did not particularly affect the overall resource of the motor. Many motors successfully knock without overhaul up to 500,000 kilometers. Often, many owners confuse the sound of pistons with the noise of the timing chain. Of course, the chain here is also not eternal. By a run of 150,000, it is noticeably lengthened, and by a run of under 200,000 it already needs to be replaced. At the same time, only isolated cases of its jump or break were recorded. Many owners install gas on the Polo Sedan. One of the iron arguments for this procedure is the presence of hydraulic lifters. But here they also decently tap, especially when cold. At the company service station they claim that this is a feature of the work. It is not necessary to change them because of such noise. The pump, water pump, is updated on the Polo Sedan along with a hinged belt and rollers on a run of 60,000 km. And it is important to update everything together. Where does antifreeze flow on Polo? The plastic tube behind the intake manifold. Often it has to be changed after 50,000 km. Also, one of the weak points can be called the exhaust manifold. As a rule, by a mileage of 100,000, it needs to be replaced due to cracks in the connection of channels from the second and third cylinders. Often the corrugation of the receiving pipe burns out. The engine mounts quickly fail, especially the left one. The native pillow sometimes required replacement even on a run of 10,000 km, as indicated by the characteristic vibrations when starting the engine. The problem with the pillows was solved by installing non-original spare parts. This is just one of those rare cases, when the original is worse than analogs. After the update, they began to install an engine of the same volume 1.6, but of a different series of the CWVA series for 90 and 110 horsepower. Again firmware. The unit belongs to the newer EA211 family. This motor is completely different. Firstly, now the timing is driven not by a chain, but by a belt. As a result, the noise has been significantly reduced. But there are also disadvantages in the CWVA motor. The main drawback is oil consumption, especially during the break-in period. I have to top up a liter between maintenance. But some owners of cars with this engine did not notice such a problem. Probably here again a game with suppliers of spare parts from the factory, or features of the Russian assembly. The 1.4 turbo engine, 125 horsepower, of the CZCA series has been installed on the Polo sedan since 2016. It also belongs to the EA211 family. The official service stations noted the much better reliability of this unit compared to the 1.4 CAXA engine, 122 horsepower, which was installed on the Golf 6. They recommend changing the engine oil at least 7 to 9,000 kilometers, and then there will be significant problems less. The 7-speed DQ200 dry clutch robot is paired with a 1.4 turbocharged engine. Previously, this box was a source of headache for car owners who were equipped with it. But since the Polo sedan received a modified version for the 100th time and only in 2016, by this time it had already been well treated. The main malfunctions of the DQ200 box are rapid wear of the clutch and gear shift fork bearings and failure of expensive mechatronics. On the other hand, this gearbox is capable of digesting torque up to 250 Nm and was installed on larger and more powerful VAG models. Therefore, there were not so many problems with it on the Polo sedan. Just know that a clutch life of at least 100,000 kilometers is considered normal. The 6-speed automatic indepth 6009G series is considered very reliable. The main thing is to prevent overheating due to oil starvation. Monitor the oil level and change it at least 60,000, then the box will last forever. Of the problems, I note a rather weak internal CV joint. Here he lives up to 100,000, and is manifested by vibration at speed. One of the important points. The suspension in the Polo sedan has many differences from the chassis of the 5th generation Polo hatchback. Therefore, many things are not interchangeable. Most often, you will have to change the front stabilizer struts with a resource of 30,000 km. Stabilizer bushings often just creaked, then the factory simply changed the supplier and the problem went away. Shock absorbers for a run of under 100,000 km may not yet knock, but they are already performing their functions uncertainly. If, when buying a used car, the previous owner has not yet replaced them, then you will definitely have to fork out for racks. Steering rods and tips hold up well, 80 to 100,000, but the wheel bearings are rather weak. Not infrequently they were changed at a run of 60,000, but usually they give up and begin to buzz to 100,000 kilometers. The steering rack on pre-styling cars could knock to a mileage of 30,000. The reason? The right support plastic sleeve is broken. We have to sort out the rail and replace it with a fluoroplastic consumable spare part. The answer is obvious, yes. The car turned out to be quite reliable, especially the restyled version, which will create very few problems for its owner. There are quite a few spare parts of normal quality on the market, and car maintenance is quite inexpensive. It is important to understand that by the mileage of 100,000 kilometers, quite a lot of consumable parts will have to be replaced.